Today's episode on the Daily Diagnostic is about how I started my journey. Now, if you're not familiar with that and how I started and how I came to, be the founder of Woman Wise Health and how I became obsessed with fibroids, is because it started with my journey. That's how all this came about. And my journey has been a very long one. I started out actually with very, very, very heavy periods. Literally from day one, they were very heavy and very painful. And that carried on for many, many, many years. And to cut a very long story short, it got to the stage round about 2017. So we're talking end of July, beginning of August 2017, where it became evident to me that things were getting serious. I could barely walk up the stairs without getting seriously fatigued. When I was on my way to the gym, I was still working out despite the fact that I was in a very serious way. And I was on my way to the gym and I just had a few minutes to catch the bus. And so I ran. And by the time I got on that bus, I was absolutely exhausted. Absolutely. So I think the following year, but this carried on. No, actually, before that. So I decided, okay, enough's enough. Let me go and see a doctor, because I didn't want to just start taking iron supplements as a way to say, right, okay, let me just go and fix this, heavy bleeding with iron pills or supplements. So I thought, let me go and find out what is going on, just how bad my anemia was, because anemia is something I've been suffering for many years, because obviously day dot, from my very first period, I was heavy. So anemia became my normal. It was very normal for me to be tired all the time. And anemic. Every time I went to the doctors, they kept telling me I was anemic. I was thinking, tell me something I don't know. So it pretty much became normal. I suffered for years without saying much. I mean, before all this happened in 2017, I went to the doctors before. I had surgery back in, 2011, that removed 11 fibroids, because it got to the stage where I just was in a 6-month pregnancy look. And prior to that, one doctor, she did put me on the pill, okay, let's hope this put you on the pill and help regulate your periods, etc., etc. But unfortunately, that gave me side effects, which was blinding migraines. And I didn't even connect the dots until somebody, my ex-boyfriend's mum's, mentioned that it could be the pill, because prior to that, I'd never really suffered with blinding migraines. I had headaches, but that was due to another problem, which I then corrected. But then these migraines, my goodness, I had to sit down. I couldn't look at anything. I had to close the curtains. They were that bad. So I just wanted to give you some context as to how I got to where I was, even though there's a lot more to it, but I'm just giving you a general overview. So anyway, moving back to 2017, where I decided, yes, I was going to, rather than just go and buy iron supplements, let me just go and see the doctor. And let me see what they have to say. So booked an appointment, went to see him, asked for a blood test. They were saying, right, why do you want a blood test? And I just told them why. Went to have the blood test, and literally, I think I got home, and it must have been no more than a couple of hours. The doctor was on the phone asking me, why did you come in to have a blood test? What was it? And I told them basically I was suffering from chronic tiredness. And he said to me, you better get yourself to A&E because your blood count is 4. Now, that was practically on the floor. That is the lowest it has ever been. And it's only when I reflect back now, I realise just how serious it was, because when you're that anemic, when you're constantly losing more blood than your body can actually replace, that puts you in a very dangerous territory, to the fact that it actually starts putting pressure on your heart. And I noticed that because my heart was pumping 10 to the dozen. Any kind of minor exertion would cause my heart to pump really hard. It was overworking because it essentially didn't have any blood to pump around. So when he told me that, actually I did. I got myself off to A&E. I was admitted that day. And they put me on a drip and said, well, we're going to have to give you a blood transfusion. And I thought, no, hold your horses. That's not what I really wanted. So they gave me fluids. And then they started scrambling around trying to find out what was the matter with me. But no one asked me anything about my prior history. They didn't ask me if I suffered with any kind of chronic issue. They didn't ask me if I suffered with fibroids. They asked nothing. They just started scrambling around, running around, trying to find out why I was having this heavy bleeding. It was ridiculous. And I was thinking to myself, don't these guys have my medical records so that they can go back and have a look? But back then, when you went to different hospitals, because one of my main hospitals, I'd moved from there, so I was admitted to a hospital that was nearer to my new locality, and so of course that they hadn't centralized hospital records. I think that's what they're doing now, but they certainly hadn't done it, back then. And it makes you wonder why aren't they checking up on your history, because there's a timeline there, and this is something that's been ongoing. But I was there, I think, all day. I just wanted to go home because now I knew what the problem was, and I was a bit more hydrated because I was very dehydrated as well. I just asked them to let me go repeatedly because I just thought, I just don't need to be here. This is where they said, you're going to need another operation, which I reluctantly agreed to. They arranged that for June 2018. But at that time, that was where I made the decision. I thought, I've had enough of this. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's going on. They're not even asking me the right questions. They're not even asking me any questions, to be honest. They're not asking me anything. So I said to myself, right, I'm going to do everything I can to find out what is going on with me, because this is too much. I cannot tolerate this. I need to find out. So that was the beginning of my own personal journey. It was that time in hospital where I thought, no, I just need to, I just need to find out what's going on for myself. that was when I started my research. I started digging. Now I knew, also at the same time, now I was aware that my iron count and how bad it was. That's where I started what I call iron stacking. I took mega doses of iron supplements for a few months because I had to look at the dosages and say, right, okay, what was appropriate for me, and take what some would probably consider an overdose. It wasn't an overdose because my iron count was so low, my body actually needed it. Because what I've noticed with some of these supplements, you need therapeutic doses for a short period of time just to get your iron stores back up. And this is what I was doing. So I did that, and then I think I must have done it for a good while, maybe could have been about 6 months. I wasn't actually counting the time, but it was a long time I was doing this for, because I just wanted to ensure that my iron stores started being replenished. So once I started doing that, I started digging deep into the research and thinking, right, okay, what's causing these fibroids? Why is I'm having heavy bleeding? And I did that. And then as I found out information, I started trying it on for myself. So essentially, I became my own walking laboratory. Whatever the research said, I think, okay, let me give that a go. And I'll do that for a while. And then if it didn't work, I'll try something else. So it was really an experiment. And also, I was trying a whole load of random things for the whole year from that 2017 to 2018. I was not only looking at the research, but I was trying a whole load of random things, because by then I found myself in a number of fibroid groups, and there was a big one that I was in. I'm not in there now, but that was one of the biggest on the platform I was on. And so there was lots of women in there recommending certain herbs, or they'll go, have you tried this? This is really good. That's really good. So I was trying a whole bunch of stuff. I could literally reel it off. If I actually, let me have a look, because let me see if I've still got the form, because I know I wrote them all down. That's if I can actually find it. Let's see. So yes, these were the supplements, just some of the supplements I took over a 3-year period. So let's have a look. So just to make sure. Yeah. So the supplements I took, this was, like I said, I was experimenting. So I took serapeptase when you could take it at the time. They've kind of banned it now, so it's very hard to come by, and a lot of supplement companies, especially in the UK, have removed it from their formulas and changed to something else, which is a real shame. But when I first started taking serapeptase, oh my life, I had the worst cramps ever. I didn't know what it was initially. All I know is that I got these cramps. I think it was usually on day 4 and day 5 of my my periods, when they were really heavy. When it was coming to an end, usually about day 4, day 5, depending on the length of my period, I would normally get these cramps, and then a big clot would come out, and then that would signal the end of my my cycle for that month. But when I took serapeptase, those cramps intensified by like 10, 20, 30 times even, and which floored me. I was vomiting. And after a while, I had to think back, right, what did I start doing differently? Why I'm getting these symptoms? And I linked it back to the serapeptase. So I stopped taking it. And after a while, it must have been after a couple of months, so it took a while for it to work its way through my body, that didn't happen again. So, of course, to test it, because I was using myself as a laboratory, remember, a testing lab, I decided to take them again, and exactly the same thing happened. And then after that, I just stopped taking it because my body just clearly, for some reason, didn't like those supplements. I took Kirky Forte, I took something called Blockbuster All Clear, something called Fibro Defense, vitamin D, B complex, iron supplements, digestive enzymes, vitamins, minerals, malic acid, minerals, more minerals, something to protect my kidney, thyroid support, sunflower lecithin to help me digest my food better. I took a whole bunch of herbs, green foods and superfoods like moringa, chlorella, liquid chlorophyll, red algae. I was burning and using essential oils to make massage oils like clary sage, rosemary, citronella, tea tree, castor oil. And then I was taking things like milk thistle, agnus castus, red raspberry, dim, and jobeline, something I heard about. I took that for a while as well. And then I was using various detox protocols like zeolite, Epsom salt, psyllium husk powder, and there's various other supplements that I highly recommend and use as well as sea vegetables like Irish moss, bladderwrack, and etc. etc. So I was using a lot of stuff. But guess what? Come around August, it was definitely August 2018, my period came and it was heavy. And at that point, I broke down. I became very, very depressed to the point where I just stopped eating. I stopped eating and my weight plummeted because, like most women, I was doing all this stuff. None of it worked. So I stopped everything I was doing. And I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't continue doing this and I don't know what I'm doing. So I stepped away for it for a few weeks. And then it was probably the lowest point in my life, actually, because especially when I thought to myself, I've done all this training. I've spent years studying health and nutrition and how the body works, and I knew nothing about fibroids. I learned nothing about fibroids. I knew a little bit about endometriosis at the time and PCOS, which has been renamed PMOS. And there was so many chronic diseases or diseases that I learnt about during my studies. Fibroids was not one of them, because I remember sitting there during class times thinking, well, where's fibroids on the list? There's everything else here, but fibroids aren't there. I was just sitting there quietly thinking, where is it? Why aren't we learning about this? So I came out with this great diploma ready to help people, and I knew nothing about the problem I had. And that was a bit of a paradox for me, because I just felt like a fraud, I was thinking, I'm doing all this stuff, helping other people, saying, right, okay, this is what you need to do to get better sleep, and this is what you need to do to get better nutrition. I was doing all that, all the stuff. And I know I was doing all the stuff for myself, but I wasn't getting any better. And I didn't know why. Until I started all this research. So, of course, after my depression period, I picked myself up, dusted myself off, and I thought, right, I am going to find out for certain what the heck is going on, because unless I know exactly what is happening in my own body, I'm doing exactly what these other women are doing, and I'm just guessing. I'm just throwing everything at the fibroids without understanding why they're there and what's causing them to grow. Because by this point, after my first surgery, they started growing back, be it slowly, because I know there's some women out there, their fibroids after surgery can go back quite quickly, but mine started growing back really slowly. And this was within a 6-year period. So I was doing something right that slowed the growth, but not enough to stop the growth. So whatever was going on was still in my body. And this is what I needed to find out. And once I did find out for certain, that's what I'd be able to, deal with. I'll go and fix that. And so if I look at an old report, because I went to see somebody in October, I've still got my report. He did bioresonance, and that's what I do. And this report is from the 18th of September 2018. So I stopped doing what I was doing probably around mid-August. So I did give myself kind of a break. And I thought to myself, right, I know my friend knows somebody. So I'm going to ask her for his number and I'm going to go and see him. And that's what I did. Booked an appointment, went to see him. He gave me my report. And I was looking at the biomarkers. So when you use bioresonance or any kind of functional test, they're always looking at biomarkers. Yeah. So they're looking at specific markers in the body to see what's in and out of balance. And when you're looking at bioresonance, unlike a blood test, which is just a snapshot in time, that looking at what your what biomarkers are happening in your blood at the time, i.e. your iron stores, for instance, these biomarkers, when you're doing bioresonance, again, it's a snapshot in time. But these biomarkers, they're a bit more extensive, and they're going to, over time, once you have several scans, they're going to show you what keeps happening, because there's patterns. You start looking at patterns, and this is what I wanted to speak to you about today briefly, but I might do I'll do another session and I can go into it in a bit more detail. But out of 172 biomarkers, I'm not going to go through the whole lot. I'll give you an overview. There was 172 biomarkers that my body was being measured against. Out of that, I had 61 in range, and out of range was 111. I was in a bad way. And I'm looking at the actual report now. So there were 4 items that, let me just scroll down here. So you're looking at 4 core systems that your body is looking to maintain. And those four core systems are the detoxification system, the gastrointestinal system, the hormonal endocrine system, and the immune system. This report is different to what I use today, but this is what the report measures you against. And so out of those four core systems, my immune system was shot, my detoxification was shot, and so was my hormonal and endocrine system. In fact, all four systems were in overdrive, and my gastrointestinal system, i.e., my gut function, was just on the floor. So my body was struggling. So once I knew what the issue was, like I said, I'll go to it in a bit more detail in another session, in another diagnostic session. I will actually show you what the stressors were, what was stressing my body, because it's important that you deal with the stressors, what's actually stressing the body out, rather than just battling the fibroids. And this is a mistake I see so many women make, is that they're going in like I did, throwing everything at the fibroids, trying to shrink and eliminate them, and taking these teas and hoping they'll fall out, which is just not going to happen. These things are rock solid. I've done the research on them, and they just do not fall out. That just doesn't happen. It will be brilliant if that did happen, but I'm afraid not. Fibroids need to be tackled in a two-pronged approach. You have, depending on how bad they are or how severe the problem is, they will need to be removed via medically. I don't necessarily think a hysterectomy is a good way to go, but that's what some women want, and obviously that's their choice. But depending on the skill of the gynae, a myomectomy is probably the best and the cleanest. That's what I had, and that's all I can speak to. There are other surgeries available, but many of them that I've looked at, some of them have a high failure rate, especially uterine fibroid embolization. I've looked at a group that I'm in, and there's a high failure rate, and 3, 4, 5 years later, lots of women are having a hysterectomy anyway. But I always say to do your research. That's exactly what I did, lots of it. So I know what causes fibroids, and I know what to do to tackle them. I know what to look for. And I will be going through that, like I've already said several times, with you, through that with you, because it's important that you understand what you're dealing with, rather than trying to fight fibroids, because by fighting the fibroids, you're actually tackling the end result of a cascade of chronic issues that have been burdening your body for a very, very, very long time. So let me leave it there. But like I said, I will come back and I'll actually show you the report from 2018, and I'm going to also show you the reports from the bioresonance that I've been using recently, and you'll see that there's still some things that are showing up in the reports now that were showing up in the reports back then, which is absolutely fascinating. And this is what I'm talking about. when I say patterns. You're looking for patterns. You're not just looking for an issue that can be diagnosed, that you can just go and take something for to try and fix. The body doesn't work like that. It's much more sophisticated. It's all connected, and you've got to go upstream and downstream to find out what the problem is, what's impacting your body, and then that's where you start getting results. So until the next one on the daily diagnostic, have an absolutely fabulous day, and we'll until the next one.